This
Yeah.
conference will now be recorded.
Do you know how he does his beta testing from Lightburn?
Yeah, I've
Is
been on
it
the Yeah, there's a beta program. I've been on it for, well, since it started, since I had the pre-release version, I think even. Um, and it's on, there's actually some hidden sections in the forum, for the beta testers. I don't know how to sign up for it or anything like that. You could probably just inquire on the Lightburn forum.
yeah, okay?
All right, we got some people popping up. I put it in a few different places today. So yeah, I was looking at Focus, and I've seen some people talk about Focus, and then Lightburn has their version of a ramp test using the full control of the Z-axis. So I'm going to write an article about that because I think it's a good idea for people to check their focus. Number one, those stop rings that are on those stock 2-inch heads. Let me pull up screen. Um, are adjustable. In case something gets out of whack or you have to move it. But they say the focal distance for the standard lens is 5 to 6.5, and we always say 6. And that acrylic that comes in there isn't quite 6.
Yeah.
So there's a little fudge factor in there all the way around. So it may be a good idea to do an equivalent of a ramp test. It's kind of hard with ours because on the stock 2-inch lens, if you're focused or near focus, you're only a 1/4 inch away from the material, and you start using the full motorized Z controls to run your Z bed up and down to affect those tests, and you got to be careful that you don't mess up or you might crash something. So
Yeah.
the good thing is our autofocus sensors are our Z min in stops also. So if anything in that sensor, if it breaks that light curtain across there, at least it'll stop it. So I like that in case there is a snafu. So that helps. But I'm going to make a little article about it. I'm working on it, but let's see. Oh yeah, you haven't even been seeing that. There's the test. And it basically just draws lines from 0 millimeters, whatever you set that at, all the way to 20. And then you just pick the cleanest one or the best
Okay.
looking one. So it's kind of like a rep test. But you don't have to chalk up a piece of wood at an angle and run your head real close to it and that kind of stuff to get the results you're looking for. So that'll be a neat thing. So just so people can look. Oh wow, we got a bunch of people. So and we've got some new people. So we're gonna start with a new person, and you can just jump right in. Hey Jordan, good to see you on here too, man. So all right. Well, let's see. Hey Jen, I'm not sure if you've been on before. Is this your first time on the webinar? Oh, there you
One other
go. Oh,
couple
okay,
weeks
okay.
ago I made it, but this is, yeah, I'm a newbie.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, since I picked on you first, do you have any questions?
I don't have anything right now. I'm just gonna listen in and see what I can learn.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, if you have anything, just jump right in. Sometimes we get carried away and you have to just jump in, tell us you want to raise your hand. So,
Okay, will do. Thank you.
all right, absolutely. Um, Good to see a few more of you in here. John, how are you?
Not doing too bad. How are you doing, Brian?
All right, all right. So, you got anything for us today? You just gonna hang around and see what's happening?
Just researching.
Okay. All right. Did you have any
Um,
particular questions or anything?
all I have right now is a little port toward laser playing
Okay.
around with,
Hmm.
looking to get into something bigger with my woodworking.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I had my first laser was a diode laser, one of those little Niji or whatever it was, one of those
Yep.
things. And then I got a ULS, and then that Niji fell off of it one day and broke in a million pieces, and I just swept it up and put it in the trash. I kept the module though, the LD, just in case. But
Right.
yeah, but those are neat. Then doing that Nicky Norton thing on there. Have you done the tile, the white tile?
Nah, not too much into the white tile stuff.
Okay, okay, but yeah, and diode puts it's great contrast, and it's good
Mhm.
resolution, just a little slow and a little weak. But if you have any
Slow,
questions or
slow is a
anything,
good
just
word.
yeah. So it is a good word. I was being nice, so it's relative. But
No, I'm more into, I don't know. I kind of like been watching doing the mapping, street
oh,
mapping.
okay, Okay.
And I build cabinets and stuff on the side and stuff.
Sure.
And I'm looking to embellish a little bit onto spicing it up a little bit.
Right. Right. You looking at like a 24 to get started? Or are you going to look for something bigger? Since you do cabinets, maybe you could put a whole door or something like that in there.
I would, well, you can always do the light burn way of tiling.
Right.
I would probably start out with a 24 because I would love to get a 35, but I can't afford one right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Plus,
So,
what is it, a 4-month wait right now?
is Grant on here? No, I don't see him. I was going to defer that question. Yeah, something like that. So, kind of the way that works, and it's worked this way even when I was doing that part at the very beginning. We order machines like constantly, and there's ships coming over, every 2 weeks or every month or whatever the frequency was when we first started. And we say we need X amount of 63s and X amount of 24s. And sometimes it depends on how many they can cram in a container. Sometimes it depends on other things. And we have to kind of gauge it, how many do we think of these we're going to sell? So we pre-order all this stuff really. But the thing is that people are signing up for them faster than we can do that. So that's why some of them come in 2 weeks before. They were technically already on the way, but in the waiting list, they're in the same order. You know what I'm saying? The way we assign them, they just come sometimes a little bit differently because of the way they're packaged. So that's kind of how that works. But so that's why it varies from machine to machine. You can't put as many 63s on a container, of course, as you could 24s, so we got to think about that stuff too.
Right.
But yeah, it varies a little bit, but it is, I think, unfortunately about 3 to 4 months. And, in the grand scheme of things, a year ago when we were just getting this thing rolling, really, it was 2-week wait then. So, and that was terrible. So, to me, it's not horrible just because I see how long it takes for everything else. But yeah, 4 months is a sticker shock. You give somebody 10 grand or 6 grand or 15 grand, and then you wait 4 months to see it, so I get it. It's a heck of a wait, and the anticipation will kill you just waiting for it, especially that last couple of weeks. It gets pretty intense. So it did for me.
Oh, it would for me too.
So that gives you plenty of time to look through all the resources and all that stuff too. So it's kind of good. There's a buffer there. Gives people a chance to look around and do some precursory, preparation and that kind of thing. So, well, like I said, if you have anything, specific about them, just let us know, and we'll be glad to help. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, there's Glenn, and he's popping his video on.
How's it going?
All right, man. How have you been? Oh, you got some feedback.
I don't know. There we go. Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah, I was trying this headphone, and
Gotcha.
I'm not too good with all this stuff. Everything's
So,
going good. Hopefully, everything's going with everybody.
Yep. So you've been making lots of stuff?
Yeah. We've been staying pretty busy.
Cool.
We haven't did a lick of advertising, and I got realtors coming to me, and I got a guy wanting to do a bunch of cups with a mortgage company. And,
right. All right.
Yeah,
Well, that's a good little vertical market to be in right there. You can catch both ends of the realtor side. You can go to those meetings they have and peddle the spoons and the closing gifts and the, cheese boards and that kind of thing, wine boxes. And then on the agent side, you can do acrylic awards and that kind of stuff and cups for them on that end. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely good deal for sure. Not what I expected when I first got machine and did one for one realtor, and now people are coming to me. So it's been
Sure.
I guess it's not saturated here.
Gotcha. All right, man. Well, cool. If you have anything, just let us know. I just thought I'd say hi. So,
Hello.
all right, man. So Dodie, how are you? You've been waiting for me to call on you?
I was wondering if you could get my name right. Usually people call me Dottie, so.
Did I get it?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Okay. So
I don't have questions because I haven't really looked through everything, so I don't want to ask questions when obviously the answers are probably, there. But I think I'm scheduled for June potentially, so I've still got plenty of time to look through.
Okay, so been checking out the cheat sheet and all that stuff. I tried to make that as comprehensive as possible and kind of in order. So hopefully that, there's a lot of information there, a lot of rabbit holes to jump down.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah, I've kind of looked a little bit, but haven't had a lot of time to deep dive in there. So.
Okay, all right. Well, if you have anything at all, just let us know. We'll be glad to help.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have Lightburn downloaded yet, or have you used it yet?
No, not yet.
I'd recommend starting there. Right, last thing you want to do is get everything ready and then realize, well, I don't have anything to cut, or what's my first file going to be? You can play around and you spend the next couple of months, perfecting design and things you want to cut and stuff like that. That way, once you get your laser, you can start playing with it.
So I didn't pay in full. Do I not get the Lightburn key until I make that second payment?
There's a free trial, so you can download it, run it for 30 days, and then if you got a laser coming, you can reach out to them, and a lot of times they'll let you keep that full trial a little bit longer if you've bought it.
Yeah.
I use Inkscape now. I have a Glowforge now, so this is going to be a whole new world, I'm sure. But I use Inkscape now, and I'm okay with it.
Well, until you get familiar with Lightburn, you can also just import into Lightburn. Since you're used to drawing, if you already have all your files and stuff, you can import those right into Lightburn if you need to, and then you can kind of learn it as you go along. You don't want to mess up your productivity piddling with Lightburn and learning it, of course. So, yeah, somebody asked for that link for the cheat sheet, so I'm going to pop that in there on the chat. Copy. There we go. But yeah, if you have any questions at all, just let us know. You can email support@thunderlaserusa.com, and we've got multiple people watching the board, or you can give us a call, or private message and Facebook stuff. We'd like to answer questions on Facebook. That way everybody can see them. But the private message stuff, I don't hardly check it just because I get so many. It's rendered it almost unusable. So email is the best way to get us, or phone. So.
Hey Brian, I have a question. I have a Nova 24 on order and it doesn't come till June. I'm just trying to plan out kind of where I'm going to put it in the house or in the garage and things like that. And I've seen a lot of feedback that, you shouldn't leave these things unattended, should be kind of right there. I'm working from home kind of thing. Like, I'm just trying to figure out from a noise and how close to me this thing should or shouldn't be, like back bedroom, garage, like, is it loud? I tried to watch that video where you kind of go through the sound of the thing, but just trying to understand like how far this thing should be away from me. And, I want to have it handy so I can work and,
Right.
check on it and stuff, but not out in the garage where it's unattended and, obviously it's a fire and, whatever, things like that. I'm just trying to understand what people do just, with them, and are they in their living rooms or, like, are they unattended? Are they sitting out in the garage with the thing, just trying to get a better feel for it.
Yeah, of course, we always, want them to be right there in close proximity to the machine and be aware of what's going on. But for instance, mine are sitting probably about 3 feet away. So I will use my Lightburn camera in that instance to monitor it. But I'm close enough that I can run over there and have the extinguisher in my hand, in probably 4 seconds, and be over there to it as soon as I see something. But yeah, even going in to top off your coffee and warm it up again, they've come back to some bad problems. If you're engraving tile, maybe you don't have to worry about it, but cutting acrylics or even just engraving most of the things that are going to involve that flame. So it's pretty important not to stray.
Keep it handy. All right, keep it close. Right, it's not that loud that you can't be on a call and it's running, or
the Nova 24 has an inline fan in it, and it's got a DC motor, so they're already quiet. They're not quite as quiet as those ones that you see, the Cloud Lines and some of those super ultra quiet ones that are made for grow rooms and things like that. They have to be quiet because
you can replace out that fan, right?
You
the quieter one. Okay.
You can,
so it's just the fan that's the loud part, you'd say? Like
the chiller also has a couple of fans in it, and of course that's but it's not terrible. I can talk on the telephone with it here next to me. But your machine or the Nova 24, I don't know which one you're looking at, but the Nova 24 already comes with a fairly quiet fan. The one that makes so much noise, let me pull my screen up real quick, I'll show you. The one that makes so much noise is the CT 550, I think. this one, that centrifugal fan. This comes with the Nova 35, 51 and 63, and it is about 482 cubic feet per minute. I don't have a noise rating on it. I can get one. I've got one here. I'll measure it and update it. But the Nova 24 comes with this little inline fan, and it's quiet. So typically the ones that are being replaced are those big green loud centrifugal fans, because they are a bit noisy. So it's like a vacuum cleaner running maybe, or something like that. So
Thank you for the information.
I've got one new in the box if anybody wants to buy it.
yeah,
Mine's not new in the box. I actually took it out of the box, but I've not used it yet.
So, but yeah, other than that, you can be pretty close to it. The laser itself, you know, the motors and just the operation of the machine, it's fairly quiet, actually. So
that being said, working in a garage, since I'm in Wisconsin in the upper Arctic, is it safe to run a mild solution of antifreeze through the tube or not?
It is RV antifreeze is recommended, not the ethylene glycol, not the automotive antifreeze, even though the chiller company says use automotive antifreeze, but then they say flush it just as soon as you're done using it so it doesn't corrode all the parts. So, and I've got an article about that. I don't know if you've seen it, that goes over some of that stuff. Let's see. Pull this back.
Because the shed that I would have mine in, it gets down to like, well, last week it was down to 15, 20 degrees.
Gotcha. This is the stuff, RV antifreeze. It's made for RV and marine. You pour it down the drains and things like that, and it's like safe. You know, it doesn't have a lot of harsh chemicals and that kind of stuff in it. So that stuff you can mix you know, if it's really cold, do a 50-50 maybe. I wouldn't go over that. It may the viscosity may, you know, tax the pump a little bit.
Right.
So you want to keep it as, you know,
that's good for how cold? I can't read what it says on there. It says 50,
oh,
-50.
yeah, I don't know. I'll have to. I think there's a link to it. Let me see. Whoops, did I lose it?
I want to throw in on that RV antifreeze stuff. Just don't buy the cheap stuff when you do it. I've dealt with a lot of the RV antifreeze in northern Minnesota here, and you buy the cheap stuff and you pay for it.
Gotcha. Now, the other thing I'm looking at is there's a company in Texas, and then Wayne Rees with Thunder in England told me about a guy, and it's a performance fluid. It's a cooling fluid, and it's made for stuff like this, you know, for PC, overclocking, you know, thermally cooled PCs and stuff like that, but also in industry for industrial chillers and things like that. And they've got a fluid that they think you could replace or at least mix with the water that would do a better job than some of these things. And we're looking at some of those performance engineered coolants to do some testing on. And I might even start a beta program on that and let a couple people sign up and see if they want to try it. So that's something we're looking at, because after this last couple of weeks with Texas and all the tubes we had broken, we need to bolster that part of the information that we have, you know, on to keep the freezing stuff under control. So that's something else that we're working on.
So with the 24, that's a 60 watt?
It is. It's got a C70 tube in it and a HYT 60 power supply, and outputs about 66 watts at 90% or at 100% with that new firmware.
You can cut through how thick with it, because I'm seeing relatively a lot of different answers on the web. Quarter inch, easy.
Oh, you can cut through half if you put an external air compressor on there. It'll cut through half inch like butter. It's slow, but it'll cut it like butter.
Okay.
Yeah, Robert was cutting a good bit.
Yeah, and the Lightburn developer has a Nova 24 also, and he did a video about cutting some with the stock 2-inch lens. So just using a Cali air pump. So
would you be better off having the 4-inch lens on that for cutting the thick stuff?
I didn't see that much of a taper. I use my 2-inch for about 99% of the stuff I do. I cut 3/4 inch acrylic, 1-inch hardwoods. If I cut foam or something like that, I might use the 4-inch to get some of that taper out. But I'm not doing inlays and things like that either, so it may depend. But the 4-inch definitely has its advantages for thicker materials. One of the main advantages is you get more depth. Since your focal length is 10 millimeters to the surface, if you want to focus into the material, you can focus up to 9 millimeters into the surface of the material with the 4-inch lens, whereas with the 2-inch, you can only focus a maximum of 5. So you may not get all the way to the middle of a piece of 1/2 inch, with the 2-inch lens. So I'll pull a millimeter off on if I'm cutting 1/2 inch, I'll pull a millimeter off. That also gets the nozzle closer to the material, so there's more effective air assist, and run about 35, 40 psi, and it's great.
Good.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. That I've tried the 2-inch and the 4-inch, and my settings are pretty much the same.
Yeah, well, the 4-inch actually reduces your power some because it makes the beam wider, so the beam density decreases. So
yeah, I'd found that if I use the same settings, I was getting almost exactly the same cut, except it was a wider curve.
A little wider, yeah. And like I said, if you could only pick one accessory, before I bought the 4-inch lens initially, I would buy an external compressor. If I was going to cut thick stuff, I'd keep the 2-inch lens and get a compressor, because you get a lot more versatility that way. If you get a 4-inch lens and keep the stock compressor, you're not doing a lot of good.
that actually makes more sense.
Yeah.
What is
and
the
then
extra
you can always get the 4-inch later,
What does that extra air assist with? What does it do? It just blows out the material?
Yeah, for cutting, it's a lot of it is that it mitigates the flames and flare up, and it clears out the debris field and blows all that debris through the material so it can be exhausted through the downdraft exhaust. And see, the stock pump that comes on it, it'll do, and that's what people start seeing as putting all these accessories on here, and they're like, you got to do all that stuff to that laser, and you really don't. It'll run what it says it'll do out of the box, but you just can enhance the performance quite a bit by doing some of this stuff. So if the stock pump max PSI is about 5 PSI, but it works more on flow and volume than it does pressure. When you add an external air pump, you're really relying on that extra pressure. So when you get up to 30 PSI or so, you're really blowing that debris field out. And that, it depends on the material. Acrylics, you don't use nearly as much air. You want almost zero air when you're engraving if you really want a white, chalky contrast. And I usually defocus a little bit. And then for cutting, you don't want too much air. It'll solidify before you get that nice flame polished edge, and you'll see striations and other imperfections and inclusions in the cut. So.
Well, it's kind of like a torch too. You're basically adding air to make the flame
Exactly. And if you're cutting organics, then it absolutely accelerates the pyrolysis. Absolutely.
When you're cutting 1/2 inch material, like approximately what kind of air pressure do you like to use?
Somewhere between 30 and 40.
30.
Yeah, people used to run higher than that, and we've changed our maximum air specification to keep from prematurely making the relays fail. But we've found the diminishing point of returns on that. Once you get, past 30 or 40 PSI, it's really ineffective at that point, unless you're cutting something 5 inches thick and trying to get to the bottom of it,
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, hey, Jason, good to see you on here, man. We got the Rotoboss guy on here with us again today. So if you guys have any rotary questions, he's there for you on that too. So.
Trouble getting in here. I didn't see the link to get on here.
Oh, yeah, it never changes. I'm updated the article. I'll send you a link to it. That way, if you ever lose it, it'll be there.
Yeah.
So.
Rotoboss is working good for me. I've about 1,500 mugs into it since I got my Thunder, so not a mistake with it.
Yeah.
Once I got the steps per rotation figured out on a 360, that was my main thing. The steps per rotation, I missed that part, and I was like, why can't I get a complete 360? But we got it.
Awesome.
That's definitely good to hear. If you have any information on that stuff for your particular units, toss it by Brian so he can he can have that available for others as well as myself.
Sure.
Okay. Like the steps per rotation numbers that you're talking about?
Yeah, because I mean, some of the machines are different. Not every one is the exact same number for whatever reason, but having a good database of information doesn't hurt. So
Yeah, because I think I ended up, what is it, 440 or 4,400 was the recommended one. I'm down to 760 is where I ended up being on mine, so quite a difference.
Oh, I've seen some things about that webinar link, so let me pull this back up for a minute.
could you go to the webinar link? It's where it says going on right now. It usually has that join button up there at the top, and it didn't have it.
The link of it right there. It's in the description also.
Well, yeah, I see that now, but I wasn't looking. I was like, where's the place to get in here?
Let me see. I'm gonna get. If y'all don't mind, mute your mics if you're not talking, please. We can keep the extraneous noise down. Yeah, I don't know why the button's not there, unless because it's already started now. I could look at the next one. Let's see.
Well, the next one don't have it either.
Go to link.
Remember, he had this problem before.
Yeah, it's there.
What?
Right there. Right there.
Oh, now it's there. Well, that's for the 20. That was for the 25th.
It's all the same.
It's the same link. You can literally bookmark the link and go to it.
No, I just usually click on the go to link now. I don't bother reading. Too much work.
Gotcha.
There you go. I had to put a picture up there.
Yeah, I work by pictures. I don't like numbers and letters and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if anybody else has
quick one. I saw
Kevin
asked a question in the chat there about the engraving with the 130.
Yeah.
I've got a 51 130 and phenomenal results engraving. Right. So I've done it with the 2-inch head. I've played with the high resolution head as well. I've even started playing with the American Photonics with their 1.5-inch head, and engraving quality is phenomenal, right? Better than I ever thought you could get with a laser. So I'm not sure. Obviously, you can with the less powerful machines, your beam will be a little bit different, right? But in terms of noticeable quality, nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that striking voltage, that ionization threshold being so high. And if you're trying to do a high res image on anodized aluminum, for instance, you're just laying down a bunch of, like Chris said, laying about a bunch of dots, and they're either on or off. And if you increase your speed to compensate for that extra power, you can miss dots just because how that happens. And I think that's a lot of what happens.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because I've not done tons of photos, right? But I've played with it a little bit on glass, a little bit on tile, and then on various different woods, a couple of hardwoods, and some Baltic birch plywood. And I've gone in, at 1,000 DPI and played with it, and I can't see any noticeable difference or anything with the 130 tube. And be honest with you, I've played with it from like a 8 or 9% power up to like a 14% power range, and I noticed, obviously as you get higher, you start to see where it burns. It actually burns a little bit deeper rather than blowing the material out as much. But I've not seen any noticeable issues.
Yeah. And that's why that's such a slippery slope, even talking about this stuff, because 99.9% of the people with a 100 or a 130, they're doing, real delicate engravings and just doing anything they need to do. And then it seems like they're the ones that have a particular process, and it has to be like, one of them was a really highly worked out piece of wood, hardwood, and then a real even coat of paint was applied onto it and set to dry. And the difference had to be between whether the paint was on or the paint was off, and it couldn't be any higher or any lower as far as that depth or that thickness went. And that's really hard to dial in, on when you're trying to get some power that low out of that big machine. And that's really the only places we've ever seen any complaints about it.
The way you compensate for that is you slow down the machine. So I have a 150 watt that I can do the same amount as I can do on my Nova 24. You slow it down to get your beam density to be over the spot for longer, so you can get the power lower. Because I can get down to about 8% on a 150 watt tube, and things turn out pretty good. But obviously you have to slow it down to allow it to do that. So it's not the most expedient way.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And see, the biggest tube I've ever had is this 80 watt. I've been, 80 watt, 60 watt, 40 watt, even 30, 25 watt RF, stuff like that. So I haven't had a lot of real world experience on that, on a 100 or a 130. So maybe I'll get one and slap it in here and see.
Yeah, I used a 150 for almost 3 years, so I had to learn how to to make it work for everything.
Yeah.
But
so you guys wouldn't shy away from the bigger laser at all? I mean, sounds like you don't notice a difference.
Most people don't. You see people every day going from Glowforge to 63 130.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
that's one I can tell you with the 130 on the 51 that I've got. I played around with cutting like craft paper and actually engraving on craft paper around Valentine's Day, playing with Valentine's Day cards and stuff like that. No issue on doing that, on cutting paper, not even cardstock, but like think construction paper. You could engrave it. I could engrave it 5 different shades of discoloring, right? Just from like a white into various shades of dark brown into at the point where you're effectively going to burn through it, and you just speed it up and cut it. No issue there. And I can cut 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood, no problem. And everything in between.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your help.
Perfect.
You're on mute, Brian.
yeah, there we go. See, it's probably better that way.
Yeah.
So, well, hey Gene, I see you sitting over there, man. I got to say hi.
Hi, how you doing?
All right. So, how have you been on everything?
Well, I mean, we're down to what, 3 weeks and maybe 4 weeks at the most. My rotor is supposed to be in today. UPS says it's on the truck for delivery. Only problem is I moved out of that house Friday. I forgot to tell you. So I'm sitting here just a few miles away from the house, and I've gone there a couple times to check and see if it's been delivered yet, and it hadn't been delivered. But we're staying in a hotel because the place that we were supposed to move into, we got a call as we're loading the truck. It's going to be an extra week. So everything's in storage, and we're just waiting to do that. We're going from a 4-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom apartment, so it's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
We've already got the one room designated for the laser, and we're just kind of hanging out, waiting, and just can't wait.
Pacing.
Yeah, we've already got with the maintenance guy. He's already changing the plugs in the apartment for me to accommodate the laser, and the place isn't even finished building yet. They're putting on the safety railings this weekend so we can move in next week.
Nice.
But yeah, he's a friend of the family, so
got a lot going on. Hopefully all that works out smooth for you.
Yeah, but yep, all in all, we're just waiting. We got about 3 or 4 more weeks and we're ready to go.
All right.
Hey Brian.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta get going. I was wanting to see if anybody had any questions before I go, like specifically for me or anything. I guess that's a no.
I guess not. Your rotaries work too good, man. You're gonna have to start putting buds in them.
I guess
I
so.
was just gonna say I set mine up last week and did my first cup. I messed up my first cup. It was my fault. It was no fault of the rotors. And once I figured out what the heck I did, it's great. It was real.
Awesome. Good to
Yeah,
hear.
I plan on
On
every
that-
time I try something new is messing it up, practicing, dialing it in, because
Yeah.
it's been that way with everything.
Yeah.
I know y'all talked about the steps earlier, and I was still trying to play with this whole headset and everything, trying to figure it out. I stepped mine down to 4,300. I did that 10 by 10 millimeter test that you had on your video. It was actually like 10 by 12 or something like that. I stepped it down to 4,300, and the 10 by 10 looked great. I did a big circle on a cup just for shits and giggles, and it was 60 millimeters up and down, and it was 63 millimeters wide. So maybe I need to step it down just a little bit more. I'm guessing, but maybe 4250 or something like that. Does that sound about right?
That's just one of those things. If you're going to go in there and adjust that, you just gotta kind of throw a couple figures out there and see what sticks and see which direction you're going and how much change it makes, so that you don't go the wrong way.
Yeah, like I said, no machine is exactly identical to the other, even though it might have the same components. For whatever reason, they have different variances, but for the most part, they work the same.
Now there is another function in Lightburn, and if you want to give this a shot, I'll show it to you. And it's good for the for all the axes, not just the U channel. And I think I have to have my machine on for that. Hang on just a second.
You're talking about to calibrate your axes.
There we go. Let's see if we go up into machine settings. Let me pull this back. Pull it over here where you can see it. You can go here to Calibrate Axis.
How you doing?
And choose your axis. And
thank you.
let me see. Oh, I guess that's Jason. I'm gonna go mute Jason.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. So
all right,
you going?
Yeah, I'm going anyway. So sorry about that. Had delivery come in.
Cool. You're cool. So.
All right, guys. If you ever have any questions about it, feel free to get a hold of Brian, or you can reach me on the website or whatever. So.
Yeah, if it's 2 a.m., I'll just give y'all Jason's personal cell phone number.
So. Yeah, that'll work.
And his address.
I'll probably answer it just as much as you will, but at least I'll leave a message, right? So.
Right.
All right,
man,
guys. Take care.
Thank you.
So let's say, for instance, that your U-axis, you said you requested 10 millimeters and you got 11. You can just put in 10 there. You put in that it's 11, and then you can write that to it, and it'll change your actual steps per rotation in the machine config. You can also do that with X and Y. If you do a 10 by 10 square just to check your calibration if it's off, you can easily do it right here with this wizard. So that's a pretty neat little thing.
Yeah, you want to make sure. Yeah. You want to make sure there too, though, is like if you're cutting, right? You want to make sure that you're not confusing, miscalibration of the axis with kerf offset, right?
Yeah, right. There is, even if you etch something on a mug like you're doing, there's still gonna, whatever that's taken away represents the kerf, so you'd want to probably measure toward the insides.
Okay.
There are some there is a little bit there, and I don't know how close you can get. We dialed one in last night and stayed on it for about 45 minutes, and I think 0.3 is about as close. 0.3 millimeters is about as close as you could get on the rotary.
Yeah.
But on the X and Y, you can use mine are almost dead on. But yeah, you can get in there and play with those.
Yeah, on my X and Y, I when I first got the machine, I checked all that, and it seemed to be spot on. I didn't mess with anything there.
Gotcha.
I guess the U is the rotary, and I think
the U is the rotary.
I just need to play with that a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed on doing anything on the rotary, right, is you got to make sure that when you're measuring the circumference or diameter, right, make sure you're as accurate as possible there. And then the other thing is if you've got a taper anywhere, right? It's if you go measure, say it's tapered, and you go measure it at the top versus the middle, right? It's going to affect it slightly different, right? So you're telling the rotary, the circumference and how many steps to actually turn that object, effectively translate that circular distance to a linear distance. So depending on where you measure it, right, helps. So when you're dialing it in, if you could use like a tumbler that's perfectly, flat rather than like a tapered one, it'll help you make sure you're not just tweaking settings that, are wasted, right? Because once you get it dialed in, then you throw the, the tapered one on there, or a wine glass or something that's, not perfectly flat, and it looks phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to dial it in on a wine glass would be quite difficult, I suspect.
Yeah, and
I was trying to. Yeah, I
always
was trying to
measure
dial it in
mine.
on something flat. Yeah.
I always measure mine right at the drive wheels, whatever that diameter is at the drive wheels. Yep. That's typically the way I do it.
And Brian, on the XY, is that the rule still in place that don't do a 5x5 and say, gosh, it's off? A bigger one, 100 by 100 or something like that?
Well, I have seen some differences in that. I usually just do like a 20 by 20. That's usually my go-to, just because. But yeah, I think you can probably see some differences. If you go way small and go way huge, you may have to dial it in a little differently. But.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is make sure when you're measuring, obviously the bigger you get, right, you want to make sure that you're measuring accurately, right? If you throw calipers across something and you've gone, across that rounded bit, your caliper can't measure that curve accurately, right? Whereas, a caliper can measure something flat accurately. So you want to put, if you're going to do it, around a curve, and you're saying, oh, it's a little bit wider, make sure you get like a cloth tape measure, something you use, forget what you call, like a seamstress tape measure that you can wrap around there, and then you can measure it. But then you're talking about, very accurate readings, from the laser to calibrate it, and looking at a flexible tape measure too. So it's
right.
You can always chase perfection, right? You got to find where it's good enough, and your results give you what you're looking for.
For sure. Yeah, I was pretty happy with what I got so far. So I was going back a little bit again, microphone problems and stuff. When you were talking about just for Jeremy, when he was talking about I got a 51-130 also, and when you were talking about being able to engrave cardstock, what kind of settings were you using just to do that? Only because I've got some boxes I would like to engrave on top of for another company, and when I was doing it, it seemed like it was burning through it a little bit. So I was getting more than I wanted.
Yeah, so I went in and started with the paper settings, right, that were preloaded into the 130 watt file, and then started playing with it from there.
Okay.
And
so you're a little bit lower than that, or faster, one of the two.
Be honest with you, I played with quite a few different ones. My son and my niece were there, and we're looking as, hey, did you want that darker or lighter? And comes down to personal preference. But what I found is you take the material settings as a good starting point, right? And then go in and do you a little a power test file and go see. And I try to put, if the material settings, let's say it was 100 millimeters a second speed and 15% power, I try to put the middle of that array, right, that matrix, right dead center there, so I can get faster and slower speed and higher and lower power, right? You don't want that to be at any extreme, because you might find that the result I like is actually a little bit faster, and I put that at my highest speed, right? Yeah. So if you try to plot that, starting point right dead center, and then go, plus or minus.
Gotcha.
The other thing that I've noticed on that is make sure, if you're looking at just like, so if you've downloaded the library from the website, right? So from the support site, you've downloaded the actual file and loaded it in there, check the PDF. I've noticed there's some inconsistencies.
Yeah, there are.
Right.
They're not exactly perfect, and since
and none of it will be, right?
It's not exactly, but yeah. Let me. I'll go to that real quick. Let's see, portal and materials libraries. I'll just go to the 100 watt one, but all the pages look the same. So I can get back in here. I locked up. Where is it? there we go. We'll look at this one. It's 80 watt. But yeah, there's a Lightburn file here, and then there's a PDF, and the PDF is what China put out officially. And
because if you go look at like the libraries, right, almost, a lot of them will show 60% max power here, whereas the PDF will show up to 90, but you're moving at a faster speed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it might give you almost identical result, but you can move a lot faster if you've got more power, right? So it'll speed up your time, but then your drawback is, hey, you're gonna be wearing your tube a little bit more than you do at the lower power. So it's trade-offs either way.
Yeah, and the PDF has some things that library file can't or doesn't. It's also got some settings for the 4-inch head, what to use,
yes.
As well as the HR head, and then a couple of different plastics and things like that. Some stuff like that. So it's a little bit more information than what's in
there. I printed out the PDF along with the file in the Lightburn, and I kind of referenced back and forth.
Yep, and then the other thing, and I think Robert did a video on it, but we've talked about, is go learn how to create your own presets into your library. Just add them in there, right? You go find something that works, save it in there, put a big asterisk in front of it, put it all capital letters. This is my 1/8 inch plywood cut, right? And once you dial it in, it's great, right? And the other thing is, go in and try a couple of them. Go make, hey, this is a light engrave, a medium engrave, a dark engrave, right? If you're doing text and you like the text to look darker than you do like a picture or a graphic, go play with that and save it as, hey, this is my single line font text, and I do it as a line, like as a cut rather than an engrave, because an engrave takes more time on text. For everything I do with text, if it's not, artistic text, right, I'm not drawing some design text, I just want, a reference on something on a template, I do a single line font in there. I do it as a cut, and I'll do it at like 8% power at 450 millimeters a second, and it takes 2 seconds to run it versus 45 seconds because you're engraving and rastering it. But that's one you got your trade-offs there too, is on your thinner material when you're doing that line and you're following that path instead of swinging it back and forth and turning it on and off like you were rastering. You got to make sure is especially on the higher power tube, be careful you can cut through stuff as well, because your line, your vector is designed as a cutting tool rather than we'll say an engraving tool, but you can do it if you play with your settings and get them right.
Okay. Yeah, on mine, I'm not sure. I heard somebody, I don't know if it was you or Rotoboss. If one of you guys were talking about lowering your speed in order to get it down to 8% or something like that, which kind of it's was a little confusing to me, but
yeah, so on photos, so as Jason was talking about it, but on photos, right, because you're dithering, so you're switching the laser on and off, right? So you're firing and pulsing it on and off just as a dot pattern, right? So in order to be able to dial it in very low setting to get a more finite beam signature and not blow away as much material, you've got to slow it down so it can make sure that it can give you the quality that you're looking for.
So with me not being able to get a fire at 8%, because that's kind of what's been happening, is when I try and go down to 8%, it's not firing. Is it because I'm going too fast and it's not giving it a chance to fire?
No, it's not firing because you've reached your lower limit, your threshold, that the tube cannot be excited.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
So in that instance, you would bring your power up until you get a uniform beam signature, and then adjust your speed to compensate.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I don't know how much variation there is. I can fire at 6% on mine. It's consistently, right? So I'm not sure how much variation, because I was seeing some of the stuff. It might be 10 or 11%, and I'm firing it 6% consistently, right? So I bumped it up 8% because once you get at 6% moving it kind of fast, you're not getting a great result sometimes. So I've found that I kind of like around the 8%. But yeah, the other thing is in your settings, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but don't you in your min settings, right? So like when you're saying you can't fire at 8%, are you setting your min and max at 8%?
Yeah, for my test I was, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I think there's something if you've got min settings and depending on what your speed is, right? There's something that it'll only fire above 10%, right? I think there's something in the Lightburn code.
Well, we've got ours capped, and I've got some documentation actually. Because see, we got a couple of different versions of firmware on the 59 and lower. Our minimum is 1%, maximum is 70, but on the 63 and above, min is 7% and max is 70. And those are in the vendor settings, and that allows the user to use 1 to 70 on this one and 1 to 100 on the newer ones. And what that basically means is once you hit 70, it's a cap. It's not a scale. That's the difference. On 63 and up, you actually have a scale. On 59 and lower, it's just a cap. So once you hit 70%, it won't let you go anymore, even if you type 80 or 90 or 100%.
Yeah, it's hard coded in the firmware, right?
Yeah. And this tells all the differences about the different versions of the firmware and what's different about them. Like the older machines had a 5-pin wiring harness with a switch, and they used the Y-axis for the rotary. And then the 63 and newers have that. Also, the dual air assist is one way to tell. And then I think there's one more version of firmware that I haven't put on here because it's even older, so I didn't even bother with it. But we've got that data, if you want to look through it, about all the power functions and things like that.
Okay.
And there's one other thing that come up recently, and I think you were helping. There was a lady in the forum that was talking about the preview function, right, or where it shows the estimated time and where it was off. So played a bit with that. I've gone and read the settings from my machine, and what I've noticed there though is in some instances, right, and I think it's where I was like going to engrave text and I had it set as a line, as a vector, you're capped on the max speed there, correct?
Yeah. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't think it'll go above 500, which it may not even reach that. I'm not sure how the motion planning works on that.
Yeah, and I think max, if you're talking about like acceleration across a straight line, maybe. But where I was doing text, like small
Right.
letters on like on the text on a power scale burn, or a little 4-inch by 4-inch, even though I had it set at 450. When I was running the file, it said it was running 300 on the machine. Right.
Gotcha.
So I think the motion planning caps it there. And so obviously and that's why I asked her in the Facebook group, what was it actually showing on her machine? Because I noticed where my job has been consistently, pretty accurate. It says it's going to take 2.5 minutes. It takes 2.5 minutes. And then I noticed, hey, this one said it was going to take 5 minutes, and I looked and I'm at 7 minutes. But I happened to, play with it a little bit and noticed that my speed didn't match what was in the file, and while it was running, and I think it's because I was playing with the text and the line function as a vector rather than as a raster. And I'm pretty sure it's capped there, especially on the smaller stuff, because you can't even accelerate that fast before you're slowing down and turning and curving. Whereas if you're rastering, you just swing through it, so you get your acceleration and your stops on the over travel.
Right. Plus, on that small stuff, you're liable to be using your min power instead of your max anyway, if you're doing stuff that small. So, yeah. Let's see. Well, does anybody else have any questions? I see Grant joined us. Hey, man.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Grant to release the Facebook post about taking orders on the fiber.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that too, believe me. So there's like 150 people on the update sheet, and I haven't sent anything out because there's no update. I'm one of those that I don't spam you. If I have some information, I'll send it. So so y'all hang on, it's coming.
I've got a question for you, Brian.
Sure.
We're going to be, when we get the machine, we've got to split this sucker, take it apart to get it into the apartment and into the bedroom. I didn't see in the specs the weight of the 3580.
It is. Let's see.
I'm
I think
assuming the top part is going to be the heaviest, right? With the gantry and everything.
Right. Yeah. Because technically, the part you're taking off is just the base, and it's just steel. You know, there's no real nothing to it. The weight on the Nova 3580 is. Are you getting the 80 or the 100?
The 80.
Okay. Is the gross weight 761, the net weight 682. So 680 pounds assembled. Now I've got some documentation on it here on this, getting it through the doorway, and I believe I even have it broken down a little further. You still have to do some napkin math, but at least I helped. The bottom half of the Nova 35, just the frame, just that base, is 70 pounds, 70 and a half pounds. So you'll lighten your load by, you know, almost 71 pounds by taking the base off.
Okay. How thick is that base? I thought for some reason in my head that thing came apart in 3 pieces, but it only comes apart in 2.
No, it's 2. The main machine and then just the little trolley, basically. So, but all the Nova 35 all the way to the Nova 63 are all about this dimension right here, 730 millimeters. If you take off your hinges, take off your alarm light, take out your e-stop button, you can squeeze that in like a 27-inch opening.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how wide that door is. I've got to make a curve to get it into that bedroom.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are using cardboard.
I was thinking it's 3 pieces.
Yeah, no, it's 2. If you take the top half apart, we're going to have to void your warranty.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I was going to say, take your honeycomb out, take your slats out, you know, the stuff.
If you just take the top off, you have a really, really good AP laser. Did I say that out loud? I need to turn the recording off. So, yeah.
Just give the jigsaw cut a hole in the wall, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, probably won't care.
Yeah, they probably would.
They'll only care when you move out, right?
Yeah, a lot of people are using, looking at the dimensions and getting some cardboard or furring strips. One guy used furring strips and tacked them together and actually making a frame that is this actual size. And that way you can find a refrigerator box and cut it down or something like that. You know what I mean? And actually make a replica of just that top half according to these dimensions and see if it'll go.
Yeah.
That'll work. I might have to do that because we might be able to back it into where the washer and dryer goes and then go back into the room. Is what we were looking at. We wasn't sure if we could do that or not.
You can flip it up on its edge. I mean, if you need to, you can flip it up on its tall side. You know, it's 41 inches. No, it isn't. That's the height. How wide is that? Nova 35, 1500 millimeters. I thought I put inches in here somewhere.
1500 is 4.9 feet.
Okay.
Which is 59.05 inches.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could tilt it up on its edge, you know, and scoot it. You know, a dolly, like they were showing in that thing, probably would be the best thing if you're going to do it like that. Set it up on its side, just like they're doing right there.
Well, I've got a couple furniture dollies that I bought just for that. They're not very high. So,
yeah,
we'll figure it out. If not, it'll be in the living room.
Well, that would definitely be a conversation piece. We got people with them in their rooms. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I can't get it to the front door. It's on the porch.
Time to build it in. Yeah. So.
Worst case scenario, we'll leave it in the garage and just have to cool it. How's that chiller work? I know there's people here in Houston that has their machines in the garage. How does that chiller keep up in Houston heat in the summertime?
It's an active chiller, so it's got a refrigerant and a compressor and an evaporator and all that stuff. So it works just like a regular refrigerant system would with Freon, and it keeps the water temperature to within 5 degrees of a set point is the way you'll probably want it in your climate, is to use constant set point if it's hot in there. They come in intelligent mode, and that means that it's 5 degrees above whatever the ambient temperature of the room is, which is fine if it's air conditioned or something like that. But if it's outside, of course, it'll alarm before it ever gets to its upper extent. So the heat's really not a concern. You got to watch a little bit about condensation. You don't want condensate dripping from your tube, because there's 30,000 volts running through it, and that might not be a good thing, but we don't hear many instances of that. So you're pretty safe. And there's so many people in Arizona and Texas and Tennessee and Louisiana, all these, that are pretty warm, and they don't have any problems having them either inside or outside in the garage. So, mine's in my garage, and I'm in Tennessee. So, and I don't have anything in my water. On the coldest nights, I've got a little 1500 watt space heater, and I'll run that thing at night. And then I haven't had to worry about it. So.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. Well, all right, guys, it looks like it's about time. Does anybody have any last minute questions or comments? Grant, you got anything? He must not.
I don't know why I think, but Jen's got a question for some reason. Okay. Just her eyes are telling me, I want to ask so bad, but I don't know if I should ask.
Absolutely.
All right, I can come up with one.
All right.
I'm working on the ducting piece right now, and I've seen the damper online, and I've read through I've read through a lot of stuff online. But anyway, I'm wondering if I'm going to take this through a window, what's on the external side? Am I using the same damper? Those look like they go through a wall.
You could mount one of those in there, I'm sure, on a piece of wood, cut a hole out in it and mount one of those. There's probably some other more decorative ways to do that if you're going to do it that way. Didn't you do something like that, Jeremy?
Yeah, mine's the window, Jen. So I never got around to the damper. So it started off where I literally just hung the hose out the window. Then I measured the dimension of the hose and cut a piece of acrylic to fit. So it looks like it's made to go there. So I literally have the acrylic fit like an old window unit, right? For air conditioning. So the window closes on the acrylic, so it keeps it closed, and then it's the hose is fit through there, and then I've got the screen on the outside, so it keeps any animals or anything from getting inside of it, right? And that worked fine. Yeah, I was planning on putting a damper and like a blast gate and doing something there, and I've not needed it, so I've not done it. It's had more fun things to do.
Okay.
So Jen, what I did was something similar, but instead of putting the acrylic under the window, I put it where the screen usually goes, and I just cut a screen to fit above the acrylic to make it look like it's normal. And then I took basically a connector, drilled some holes in the acrylic, a big one, so that the pipe can connect to it basically like a connector. And from the outside, I've got another pipe going out. So when I'm done, I just unhook my pipe, close the window, and no one knows any better.
Hey, awesome. You're not allowed to say drill holes in acrylic when you have a laser.
Well, no, in this case, I had to do it in a different way because I couldn't quite figure out how much I needed to cut. So
no, that's fine. I was just joking. Man, no, that was one. I was like, I can't cut holes. I can't cut out my acrylic until I get my exhaust out. And
well, no, the hole was so small, it was just kind of melting. I was like, this isn't working. Just take a drill bit and just go for it.
That's like an everlasting loop. I need to cut out my piece to make my laser work, but I can't cut out my piece unless my laser works. So
well, that was like
later,
when you get into
looking at it.
when you get into 3D printing, it's like, well, I need to get my printer up and running so I can print the parts to get my printer up and running. It's like,
exactly.
First thing you start doing is just printing upgrades for it.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick off record